There's a word in your fridge that you think means healthy, and Australian food law barely controls it. It's the word natural, natural flavor, no artificial flavors. You see it on the yogurt, on the juice, on the biscuits, on the healthy bar. By the end of this, you'll know what that one word can legally hide and why natural tells you almost nothing about what you're bringing home. I went through the labels on products that boast about being natural. I tracked what hides behind that word, and I looked at what Australia's food regulator and the consumer watchdog actually say. And this matters, because if you reach for the natural thing thinking it's the clean choice in the trolley, the one without the chemicals, the one from real fruit, that word is giving you a reassurance it may not have earned. Because natural flavor is one of the phrases that reassures you most on a label and tells you the least. The law lets a single word hide an enormous amount. And the strangest part of all, natural on food doesn't even have a legal definition. Look at this yogurt. Vanilla, it says. Big. No artificial colors or flavors. All natural. Sounds like yogurt with real vanilla in it, doesn't it? But look at the small word, vanilla flavored. And here's the first trick one the Food Authority itself points out. Vanilla yogurt has to contain real vanilla. SOT.org. But vanilla-flavored yogurt, that little word, flavored, might not contain a single drop of vanilla, just flavoring. And it's not only the yogurt, the all-natural juice that's still got as much sugar as a soft drink. The all-natural, made with real fruit bar that's got glucose syrups and natural flavors round the back. The biscuits, no artificial flavors, no added MSG. The tea, 100% natural, the same word, right across the supermarket, selling you the same thing. Clean, simple, straight from nature. And here's a fact worth hearing, because it says a lot. Natural flavor has become one of the most used ingredients on the planet, the fourth most common on labels. It's everywhere. And yet, chemically, it's very close to its cousin, the artificial flavor. It's just that nobody puts that one proudly on the front. So I turned the pack over, and there it is, in the list. Natural flavor. 2 words. Nothing more. While every other ingredient is broken down, one by one, the flavor gets to stay a single word and tell you nothing about what's inside. Why? Why is the flavor the one ingredient the law lets stay anonymous? Here's the answer, and it starts with a rule the law does follow to the letter, with almost everything. Look, every additive has to tell you 2 things, what it does and what it's called or its number. Preservative, 202, color, caramel, emulsifier, soy lecithin. You always get the job and the identity, always, except one. The flavor. It's the one ingredient the law lets be written as, simply, flavor, or natural flavor. 2 words, and the door closes. And behind those 2 words, there can be a lot. A flavor isn't one thing, it's a recipe. Dozens of separate substances, sometimes more, with solvents and carriers to move them around, all blended together, and all of it, legally, fits under a single word. Now, to be fair, why does the law allow that? There are 2 reasons, and they're not mad. The first, there are thousands of these flavor substances, with names you'd need a chemistry degree to read, and the regulator decided a list like that would mean nothing to you or me. The second, they go in tiny amounts. So the law made a deal. Instead of printing the recipe, it checks every component, one by one, before it's allowed in. The safety is handled in the lab, not on the packet. That's why there are 2 things that Black Box can't hide. If a flavor contains a real allergen, milk, egg, nuts, fish that, by law, has to come out and be named. And if there's a color or a preservative inside still doing its job, that too, they're real protections. But notice what's not protected, how processed it is, how many things it's made of, where the natural bit actually came from. The safety is checked, the information is wafer thin. And here's the part that shows this is on purpose. There's a close cousin of the flavor that the law will not let hide, the flavor enhancer. The famous one is 6,2,1-glutamate. That one has to be named by number, which is why a maker can write no added MSG on the front, and proudly. But hold this thought, the plain flavor, right beside it, can carry things that do a similar job under that one anonymous word. So the law lets flavor be a black box. And yet, with the word natural, it does draw a line. A flavor can't call itself natural just because it looks good on the packet. To be a natural flavor, it has to meet a real rule. And that rule measures one single thing. And it's not the one you'd imagine. What does natural have to mean, exactly? Here's the rule. And it's smaller than you think. For a flavor to be called natural, the law cares about one thing, and one thing only: where it started, the source. Did the flavor molecules begin in a plant, an animal, something that grows? Then it can be called natural. That's it. That's the whole test. And notice what that test does not ask. It doesn't ask how simple it is. It doesn't ask how little it was processed. It doesn't ask whether it's good for you. A natural flavor can start as a plant, and then be boiled, distilled, fermented, concentrated, purified, and blended in an enormous factory until there's nothing plant-like left of it. And it's still, legally, natural. Because the law only looks at the starting line, not the finish. Take vanilla, the perfect example. Natural vanilla flavor is pulled out of real vanilla pods, but then it can be concentrated, dried, blended with other extracts, heavily worked. Still natural, because it began in the pod. Now, here's the curious bit. There's another vanilla flavor, made from wood pulp. Yes, wood, or from petroleum. And get this, that vanilla is chemically the same molecule as the one in the pod, identical. But because it didn't begin in a plant you'd call food, it can't be called natural. So you can have two vanillas, identical molecule for molecule, doing exactly the same thing in your yogurt, and one's natural and the other's artificial. The only difference? Where it started, not what it is. Which brings us to the quiet truth nobody puts on the front of the pack. Natural and artificial flavors are very often almost the same on the inside. They're made by the same flavor chemists, in the same labs, with the same kind of mixture sometimes, the very same molecule. Natural doesn't mean simpler. It doesn't mean less processed. It doesn't mean safer or better for you. It means one single thing. It began in nature. So when you read natural flavor, now you know exactly what it's promising you, and what it isn't. It's a word about a starting line, not about what's really in the bottle. So what is in the bottle? Let's open it and see what rides inside that little word. Because a natural flavor can be a factory-worked extract, and inside one single flavor, there can be dozens of separate substances. And here's what hardly anyone knows. There's no number, no limit. The law doesn't say, a flavor can have 5 things in it, at most. It just says, every piece has to be on the approved list. So one word flavor can stand for a recipe of 40, 50 ingredients. But the part that surprises people most isn't the flavor chemicals, it's what carries them. To blend a flavor, you need a liquid to dissolve it all into things like alcohol, or a syrupy carrier called propylene glycol. And here's the catch. Because that carrier does its work inside the flavor, and not in the final food, the law calls it a processing aid, a manufacturing helper. And processing aids? They don't have to appear on the label. Not at all. Not as flavor. Not anywhere. So there can be a solvent in your yogurt or your drink that, by law, you will never see written down. Let me be clear, because it matters. Those carriers are permitted. They go in tiny amounts, and they're assessed. This isn't about anyone poisoning you. It's about something else. That the label can't show them to you, even if you want it to look. So, what is guaranteed to come to the surface? Only 2 things. If there's a real allergen in there, milk, nuts, egg that, by law, has to be named, and if there's a color or a preservative still working in the finished food, that too. Everything else, the flavor substances, the carriers, the solvents, can stay below the waterline. So picture the flavor as an iceberg. The tip you can see, a word, and maybe an allergen. The rest, Underneath is a small, dense cocktail you'll never read. Packed on the inside, almost blank on the outside. None of it illegal, none of it necessarily harmful, but none of it visible either. Which leads to the obvious question. If the law lets all that hide inside the word flavor, how much does it police that big? Reassuring word stamped on the front, all natural, 100% natural. You'd assume that one's locked down tight. Wait till you see how loose it really is. You'd think the big word on the front would be the one held to a strict standard. Well, brace yourself. That word, on the front of your food, has no legal definition at all. None. The law has a strict rule book for low salt, for high fiber exact numbers you have to hit. But natural? Nothing. No recipe, no minimum, no test. So does that mean anyone can stamp natural on anything? Not quite. There's a backstop, but it's a different kind. It's not the food regulator with a checklist. It's the consumer watchdog, the ACCC, with one broad rule. You can't mislead people. The test isn't, did you hit a number? It's, would an ordinary person be fooled? Softer, blurrier, and it only acts after the fact, if someone complains, or they come looking. And to be fair, that backstop has bitten. The watchdog has gone after words that painted a prettier picture than the reality, like free to roam on chicken when the birds were packed in tight. The same law covers natural, so it's not a free-for-all. But notice the difference. With low salt, they check before it reaches the shelf. With natural, they mostly act afterwards once it's already been in your trolley for years. And here's the cleverest move of all. No added MSG. You've seen it, proud, on the front of the chips. Now first, clear and fair. The experts, our own regulator included, consider glutamate safe, whether it's added, or whether it's the kind that's naturally in tomatoes and aged cheese. This isn't about glutamate being bad. It's about what the words let them say. No added MSG means one thing only. They didn't tip in that one specific additive, number 621. But the same flavor kick can come in the back door through natural flavor, through yeast extract, through hydrolyzed vegetable protein. The same savory taste, the same glutamate, a different name on the list. So, no added MSG is technically true and tells you almost nothing about why that product tastes the way it does. It's a statement about one code, not about what's really doing the work. So put it all together. Natural flavor hides what's inside. All natural, on the front, means nothing the law can pin down. And no added MSG is true. And beside the point, 3 reassuring phrases, 3 soft spots. But underneath all of them sits one question we've been circling, the one you actually care about. Forget the labels for a moment. Is natural actually better for you? Is a natural flavor any healthier, any safer than an artificial one? Here's the honest answer, and it might surprise you. So, is a natural flavor healthier than an artificial one? Here's the honest answer, and it isn't the one the marketing wants you to think. No, not healthier. Not safer. The scientists who check these things don't even look at whether a flavor is natural or artificial. They look at one thing. Is it safe at the amount you'll actually eat? Natural, artificial, doesn't matter. The same test. And remember, very often, they're literally the same molecule. And here's the part that matters even more, especially if you've spent years worried about the chemicals. The flavor in your food is there in tiny, tiny amounts. A drop in the ocean. It adds taste, and almost nothing else. No real salt, no real sugar, barely a calorie. The flavor, natural or not, is almost never the thing that's hurting you. So if the flavor itself is harmless, why does any of this matter? Here's the real answer. The flavor's job is to make the food irresistible. That's its whole purpose. And the foods that need a big flavor system to taste good tend to be exactly the ones packed with salt, with sugar, and not much else. The flavor is the hook. It's what makes you finish the whole packet when you meant to have 3. It quietly lowers your guard. I'm full, but it's so moreish, and so you eat more of the salt and the sugar that do push up your blood pressure and your blood sugar. The flavor isn't the poison. It's the bait. Now, here's where it's kinder than you'd expect. The flavor isn't always the enemy. If you're older and your appetite has faded, if food has stopped tasting like much, and that happens to a lot of us with the years, then a little flavor on a nourishing soup or a fortified yogurt can be the very thing that helps you eat enough. For someone losing weight they can't afford to lose, that's a good thing. So this was never flavor is bad. It's about which products are using it and why. So put the word natural back where it belongs as a clue about a starting line and nothing more. It tells you nothing about your salt, your sugar, or your health. Which means there's a real person this changes everything for. The one who's been reaching for natural, for no artificial, for years, sure she was doing the right thing. Let's talk about her. So, let's meet her. Picture a woman, we'll call her Marg. 70-something. Careful with her shopping. The way you get when the doctors mentioned your blood pressure, or your sugar. She reads the front of the pack. She looks for the good words. All natural. No artificial flavors. No added MSG. And she picks those, every time, because to her those words mean one thing. This one's looking after me. And here's the thing. Marg isn't being silly. Those words were designed to land exactly like that, to feel like care. But we've seen what they really mean. Natural, a starting line. Nothing about her sugar or her salt. No artificial flavors. The natural one's almost the same. No added MSG, true, and beside the point. So the comfort Marg felt at the shelf, the label hadn't really earned it. And that comfort has a quiet cost. Because trusting natural doesn't just cost you a moment. It decides what goes in the trolley. The all-natural, real fruit bar, instead of a bowl of oats and a banana. The naturally flavored yogurt, instead of plain yogurt, with fresh fruit on top. The word natural makes the processed one feel like the wholesome choice, when the plainer thing beside it, the one with no claims at all, was quietly the better pick. And the salt and the sugar in that natural product, just as high as in the version without the nice words. And if Marg is someone who's spent years trying to avoid the chemicals, or the MSG, and a lot of us have, then this stings a little more. Because no artificial, no added MSG felt like the safe harbor. But, and let's be gentle and honest here, the truth takes the weight off that worry, in both directions. That natural flavor can still be a mixture made in a factory, and the experts will tell you the glutamate she's avoiding is also in her tomatoes and her aged cheese, and was never the danger she feared. So here's the good news hiding in all of this. Marg can stop chasing a word that was never protecting her, and let go of a worry that was heavier than it needed to be. And here's the loveliest part. Marg already has the instinct. She's already a careful shopper. She already turns the pack over. She already wants to do right by her health. She was just looking at the wrong word. Move her eyes 10 centimeters from the natural on the front to the salt and the sugar on the back, and that same care suddenly starts working for her. Nothing to buy, nothing to give up. The same good habit, pointed at the number that actually matters. And let me say this plainly, none of this is medical advice. Your health, your conditions, that's a conversation for you and your doctor. This is only about which words on the packet are worth your trust. So which ones are? When you're standing there, pack in hand, what should you actually look at? So which words deserve your trust? Let's be straight about it. Natural. All natural. No artificial flavors. No added MSG. Not one of them is a health signal. Not one tells you a thing about your salt, your sugar, or how processed the food is. They're words about a starting line, or about marketing. Useful to a flavor chemist, maybe. To your blood pressure? Nothing. So here's the habit, and if you've watched the others in this series, you already know it. Don't let the front of the pack do your thinking. Whatever it says, natural, wholesome, no artificial anything, turn it over. Go to the back. Find the two numbers that actually run your health, sugar and salt per 100 grams. That's where the truth lives. The front is the advertisement. The back is the facts. Now, does natural ever count for anything? Sure is a tiebreaker. If two products are genuinely neck and neck on sugar and salt, and you'd rather the one with the shorter, plainer list, go ahead, Fair enough, but never the other way round. Never let the natural on the front talk you past a back panel loaded with sugar and salt. It's the last thing you check, not the first. But here's the move that beats all the label reading. The foods shouting natural flavor, the loudest are nearly always the processed ones, because the plain stuff doesn't need to shout. Plain yogurt, oats, a tin of beans, a piece of fruit. None of them carry a flavor line, because they don't need one, they are the flavor. And if you want more, you've had the answer in your own kitchen all along. A handful of herbs, a pinch of spice, a squeeze of lemon, some fresh fruit on top. That's flavor with nothing hidden, nothing to decode, and not a single word you have to take on trust. And let me say it plainly, because it matters. All of this is information, not medical advice. Your health, your conditions, your diet, those are for you and your doctor. This is only about reading a label with clear eyes. So the next time a package promises you all natural, you won't feel that little wave of trust anymore. You'll smile, turn it over, and check the number that actually matters. You've got that word figured out. But natural has a twin, another warm, reassuring word the law barely controls, splashed right across the healthy range at every supermarket. And it plays almost exactly the same trick. We pulled that one apart too. It's the video waiting on your screen right now.